Her family chased the American dream and seemingly achieved it, but it turns out there was actually a lot of trauma behind closed doors, and the pressure to succeed caused them to unravel. Author Prachi Gupta joins us today to talk about her memoir, They Called Us Exceptional and Other Lies That Raised Us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So congratulations, first of all, on
Thank
your
you.
book. I can't even imagine how much it took to write that,
Because it was definitely intense.
very personal, very personal. So tell us what your book explores.
So my book, They Called Us Exceptional, is a reference to the model minority myth, and my book is really an examination of the psychological and social impacts of this myth and what we give up when we buy into the idea that success is, the end-all be-all, and it really forces us to disconnect with our true selves, and we lose the ability to be vulnerable with the people that we love.
So tell me more about the model minority myth, what that is, and how it can harmfully impact families.
Yeah, so the model minority myth is the stereotype that originated in the 1960s with this new influx of immigrants. And a lot of Asian families came into America at that time because previously they were either barred from entry or there were quotas in place. And so it created this new professional class, and the story that was woven around this professional class was that all Asians are hardworking and innately successful and have really tight-knit families. And the problem with this story is that it really flattens an entire, group of people. I mean, there are 20 million Asian Americans in this country that come from over 24 countries. And it pits communities of color against each other because people would point to these families and say, well, they're so successful, why can't your community be as successful? So it really goes into the whole good immigrant versus bad immigrant dichotomy. And then it's also really damaging for families because it forces immigrants and their children into this mold. They can only be one thing and present one way, and it really teaches you how to hide anything that is a sign of struggle or trauma, and that has implications on our psychologically, on our mental health, and then also on how we see each other.
How did this apply to you and your family? I mean, how was this different for your public life and your private life growing up?
Yeah, so, I think we all felt a lot of pressure to project this image. It was the way in which we learned how to assimilate, how to belong. I'm American, but I'm very aware that I was never seen that way. I never certainly felt that way. So projecting this image was a really big part of being able to fit in to American society. But in my family, we really, we had to hide mental health issues, we had to hide domestic violence, and I didn't know how to deal with these things or even how to articulate these issues because there was a perception that people like us couldn't struggle. And then it made me feel like I was, I questioned my sanity because the world, I didn't see these experiences talked about or reflected in the world, and then the world told me that I couldn't have those.
What was this like, putting all of this pen to paper, writing all of that and kind of putting a voice to it?
I mean, it was really a really intense experience, but it came from a very personal place. In 2017, my brother Yash died, and that sent me on this journey to try to understand how he died. And what I realized was that it was these pressures that led him down the path that led to his death. So I really wanted to, my book is a warning about what these pressures are doing to our psyche and what they're doing to our relationships. Mm-hmm. And I feel that if we had understood this, then maybe we could have saved our relationship and he could have gone down a different path.
We're not just talking about a little bit of added stress. These are real problems.
Asian American young adults are it's the only ethnic group where suicide is the leading cause of death. Asian American college students attempt or ideate with suicidal thoughts more than white college students, for example. There are severe consequences, and the model minority myth plays a role in all of that.
And I have to imagine, too, that you've heard a lot of responses from people who have experienced similar things in getting your book out there. What have you heard from people?
Yeah, so the reason that I wrote, one of the reasons that I felt that I had to write this book was because I wrote an essay about my brother's death and all the pressures that contributed to it in 2019. And I heard from Asian American boys who said they were going down a similar path, and the essay convinced them to change their mind.
Wow.
I heard from mothers who said they had no idea that their children might be struggling with their mental health and began talking to them. I heard from sisters who were estranged from their brothers and found new compassion for what their brothers might be going through. So I knew then that I had to tell my full story and that it was going to help people of my generation find a new way to talk about our struggles.
Prachi, that's amazing.
Thank you
and
so much.
You're a Pitt graduate, and
Yes.
you're back in town for a very special reason. Can you tell us why?
Yes, tonight at the City of Asylum, I will be talking about the book and the model minority myth with Damon Young.
It's wonderful. And if the City of Asylum event is tonight at 7 o'clock at Alphabet City, thank you, Prachi, so much for coming on and talking to us about this. Free tickets are still available for in-person and online. We have more information on our website. You can also purchase They Called Us Exceptional on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. Again, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this very important topic. We'll be right back after the break.